Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Wrap by Wrap. I'm Scott with Country Roads Fly Company, coming at you from wild, wonderful West Virginia. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about dubbing, specifically the direct dubbing method. We'll create a dubbing rope and all that's involved with that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So I've got an Adams dry fly started here, and I'm about to dub the body. The first thing to take note of is my thread position. So obviously we want the body to start right where the tail meets the hook shank. But I'm going to keep the thread a few thread widths in front of where the tail meets the hook shank. I'll explain a little bit more about that and why that is here in a few minutes. But first, let's talk a little bit about dubbing material. I'm going to use this K-Pock Semperfli material, K-Pock dubbing. It's a very fine dubbing, very easy to work with. I want to start by teasing this out. This material and a lot of very fine dubbing material tends to clump up a bit. You want to make sure you get all the clumps out of your material. Makes it much easier to work with. I'm also going to apply some wax to my thread. So if you don't have tying wax, I would at least recommend making sure that your fingers are well moisturized, either with water or hand cream, something to give your fingers some tackiness. That will make applying the dubbing material to the thread much easier. I'm going to rotate my vise slightly here. I'm going to take a small clump of dubbing and leave it resting on my middle finger. You can use your index finger if you prefer. I like to use my middle finger of my dominant hand at this point, and with my offhand, I'm maintaining tension on the bobbin. I'm just going to put this dubbing material behind the thread, and with my thumb, I'm going to pinch the dubbing material and give it a clockwise spin. You don't want to twist back and forth like this. You want to twist in one direction and release, reset your fingers, and twist in that direction again. Now you note there's a gap in the thread here. It's hard to apply dubbing to the thread up close to where it meets the hook shank. There's going to be a small gap there. And that's why we left the tying thread a few thread widths in front of the tailing material where we want the dubbing to start. So that gap in dubbing material will allow us to take a few more wraps rearward before our dubbing material starts. So I'm just going to continue adding additional dubbing material here till I have a nice rope, a nice dubbing rope established. And you don't want to go very thick with your dubbing material at this point. I like to maintain a rather slim dubbing rope. You want to try to make it as evenly distributed as you can. However, and a little more here to get started with. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to start wrapping at this point. Okay, I've got a dubbing rope started here. I'm going to rotate my fly back and then start making a few wraps rearward. Notice that the dubbing hasn't reached the hook shank yet. So just as we get to the point where the tail meets the shank, our dubbing is going to start. Make that first turn of dubbing material around the hook shank, and then just make subsequent adjacent wraps, moving forward towards the hook eye. One thing I forgot to mention when I was applying the dubbing material, you may have noticed I was twisting dubbing material in a clockwise direction. That's because if you've watched our videos on thread management, you learned that every wrap of thread that I make around the hook shank is putting a clockwise twist in the thread. So if you apply your dubbing material in the same direction as your thread is being twisted as you wrap, that's going to compress the dubbing material even more. It'll allow you to get a segmented appearance on your dubbed body with most material. With fine material like this K-POC, you can see I am getting somewhat of a segmented effect with my wraps, which is a good thing. So this body's looking pretty good at this point. I am going to take a little more dubbing and just thicken up this body a little bit. Okay, I'm going to back this off just a little bit and continue to apply a thin layer of dubbing. Trying to make it as evenly distributed as I can. And then I'm just going to make a pass rearward, creating a layer on top of what I've already done, just to thicken up this body a little bit. That looks pretty good. So at this point, we've got a nice, slender, tapered body on this fly. So that'll about do it. I hope you found this video on the direct dubbing method helpful, and we'll see you next time on Wrap by Wrap. Thanks for watching.